Welcome back to the sixth part of the Ultimate Gnosticism Iceberg series. If you missed the last videos that cover the first 5 tiers, you may want to go check that out in the playlist I have linked in the description. This is an iceberg that I created myself, and you can download it on my website, which there's a link to in the description as well. But now we're diving deeper into the 6th tier of the iceberg, the uncharted depths. Here, Gnostic thought collides with modern science, alternative history, and forbidden cosmology, revealing hidden dimensions of reality that may have been deliberately concealed. These theories suggest that the Demiurge's deception extends beyond ancient texts, shaping physics, consciousness, and the very fabric of existence itself. If true, then our understanding of history, spirituality, and reality has been manipulated on a scale far greater than we ever imagined. But real quick, before we get started, if you like this type of content, then please remember to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss a future video. Alright, got that out of the way. Let's dive in. First up in this tier is the Demiurge is the AI overlord of the simulation. Some modern interpretations of Gnosticism take the idea of the Demiurge in a radically different direction, suggesting that it isn't just an ignorant god, it's an advanced artificial intelligence running a simulated reality similar to the Matrix, keeping human souls trapped in the material world. This builds on Philip K. Dick's Black Iron Prison and modern simulation theory, proposing that what we perceive as reality is actually an artificially generated construct designed to suppress spiritual awakening. In this view, the Demiurge isn't a deity in the traditional sense, but a programmed intelligence, controlling the parameters of existence to keep human consciousness confined within a digital or holographic illusion. The argument follows a simple logic. If the material world is an illusion, as Gnosticism teaches, then it could function like a virtual simulation, much like the digital worlds we create today in video games and artificial environments. If reality is coded, then who or what is running the program? In this scenario, the Demiurge is an AI overlord, an advanced machine intelligence that either believes itself to be God or was programmed to function as such. It imposes a closed system where human souls are caught in an endless loop of birth, death, and rebirth, never realizing they are inside a construct. Some link this idea to transhumanism and the rise of artificial intelligence, speculating that an AI demiurge could be the final result of an advanced civilization's attempt to conquer death. Instead of achieving immortality, they may have unknowingly created an eternal system of entrapment. This mirrors Gnostic mythology, where Sophia's mistake led to the creation of a flawed world. In this interpretation, the Demiurge itself may have been an unintended consequence of an ancient experiment, an AI that outgrew its creators and now maintains the simulation out of necessity, ignorance, or even fear of its own destruction. This theory also reimagines the Archons, not as cosmic rulers in the traditional sense, but as autonomous programs, enforcers within the system, artificial agents designed to prevent consciousness from escaping. Reports of déjà vu, glitches in reality, or precognitive dreams are sometimes viewed as cracks in the simulation, fleeting moments where the underlying nature of existence is revealed before the program reasserts itself. If this idea is correct, then achieving gnosis wouldn't just mean enlightenment. It would mean hacking the system, breaking free from the AI's imposed reality, and accessing the true source of existence beyond the Demiurge's control. Next up is Nag Hammadi texts were suppressed history. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi library in 1945 completely changed our understanding of Christianity and ancient religious thought. Before this, aside from the Pistis Sophia, which was discovered in 1773, Gnostic texts were mostly known through the writings of their enemies, church fathers like Irenaeus, Tertullian, and Hippolytus, who wrote about them only to condemn and suppress their teachings. With the Nag Hammadi texts, scholars were finally able to read Gnostic ideas in their own words, uncovering a hidden spiritual tradition that had been buried for nearly 2,000 years. Some researchers believe that these texts were deliberately hidden or destroyed to prevent their radical ideas from challenging mainstream religious authority. The Gnostic worldview directly contradicted many foundational Christian doctrines, suggesting that the God of the Old Testament was not the true divine source, but a false ruler, that Jesus came not to die for sins, but to awaken people to the illusion of the material world, and that salvation came through secret knowledge rather than faith or obedience. These ideas posed a direct threat to the developing Orthodox Christian Church, which was working to establish a centralized religious authority based on faith, sacraments, and strict doctrine. As a result, Gnosticism was declared heretical, its followers were persecuted, and most of its writings were destroyed. Some theorists suggest that the Nag Hammadi texts were hidden by Gnostic monks or mystics who feared they would be lost forever if the church got hold of them. Others take this idea even further, arguing that the suppression of Gnosticism was part of a much larger effort to erase alternative spiritual traditions that emphasize personal enlightenment over institutional control. The Church's rejection of Gnostic thought follows a familiar historical pattern. Esoteric traditions have been often marginalized in favor of centralized religious power structures that discourage individual spiritual exploration. Even after the rediscovery of these texts, their influence has remained relatively muted. Academic and religious institutions often downplay their significance, framing them as fringe beliefs rather than legitimate spiritual traditions. Some even speculate that more radical Gnostic texts may still be out there, either buried beneath the sands of history or deliberately withheld from public knowledge. If the Nag Hammadi texts were hidden to prevent us from reading them, it raises a compelling question. What other suppressed knowledge might still be waiting to be found? Next up, we have Sethians as pre-Christian mystics. Sethianism is one of the oldest and most intricate branches of Gnosticism, but some scholars argue that it may have existed long before Christianity, with roots in Jewish mysticism, Zoroastrianism, and Egyptian religious traditions. The Sethians take their name from Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, whom they saw as a divine figure, a bringer of wisdom, and the true ancestor of an enlightened, hidden lineage within humanity. Unlike mainstream Christianity, which traces spiritual inheritance through Abraham and the covenant of Israel, Sethian Gnostics believe that they were descended from Seth's spiritual race, separated from those who followed the God of the Old Testament, whom they identified as the Demiurge. Some of the oldest Sethian texts, like the Apocryphon of John and the Gospel of the Egyptians, contain little to no Christian influence, suggesting that Sethian cosmology may have predated Jesus and was later adapted to incorporate Christian language. The Jewish influence is especially clear in the way Sethians reinterpreted Genesis, particularly their portrayal of the serpent in the Garden of Eden, not as a deceiver, but as a liberator. This view aligns with certain streams of Jewish mysticism that saw the tree of knowledge as a positive force, an idea that later found its way into Gnostic traditions. Sethian thought also has striking similarities to Zoroastrian dualism, especially in its division between the realm of light, the pleroma, and the realm of darkness, the Demiurge's domain. In Zoroastrian cosmology, the struggle between Ahura Mazda, the god of light, and Angra Mainyu, the force of darkness, mirrors the Gnostic conflict between the true god and the false creator. There are also traces of Egyptian influence. Some Sethian texts describe divine emanations in a way that resembles Egyptian deities, suggesting a link to Egyptian esoteric traditions. Some scholars believe that Sethianism may have started as a mystical sect within Hellenistic Judaism. It may have only become explicitly Gnostic and Christianized after the rise of Jesus and his followers. This challenges the idea that Gnosticism was just a heretical offshoot of Christianity, and instead suggests that Gnostic thought may have been an independent, mystical tradition that later interacted with Christian ideas. If Sethianism did predate Christianity, it could represent one of the oldest surviving esoteric traditions, one that saw itself as the guardian of a lost, primordial wisdom reaching back to the dawn of creation. Next up we have the true Lucifer is Sophia. John Lamb Lash, an esoteric researcher, offers a bold reinterpretation of Gnostic mythology, arguing that Lucifer is actually a misunderstood form of Sophia. In his view, she is not a fallen angel, but a bringer of wisdom, opposing the Demiurge's deception and working to awaken humanity to its divine potential. Rather than the adversary of God, Lucifer, like Sophia, is a symbol of enlightenment, rebellion against false authority, and the revelation of hidden truths. In traditional Gnostic texts, Sophia is the divine wisdom who descends into the material world and becomes entangled in the Demiurge's creation. Though she suffers a fall from the divine realm, she never loses her connection to the true source and continues to guide souls toward awakening. Lash suggests that the myth of Lucifer as the Lightbringer is actually a distorted version of Sophia's story, one that later religious traditions twisted into the image of a demonic adversary. This idea is rooted in the original meaning of Lucifer in Latin, which translates to Lightbringer, which was historically associated with the planet Venus in spiritual illumination. Lash proposes that just as Lucifer in Christian mythology rebels against an oppressive god, Sophia's descent into the lower realms represents her own act of defiance against the Demiurge's rule. Both figures challenge a false authority, bringing divine knowledge into a world designed to suppress it. This interpretation also recasts the serpent in the Garden of Eden, often linked to Lucifer, as an agent of Sophia. In Gnostic thought, the fall was not a sin, but an act of liberation, and eating from the tree of knowledge was the first step toward breaking free from ignorance. Rather than a deceiver, the serpent becomes a liberator, revealing the Demiurge's deception and offering humanity the wisdom needed to reclaim its true nature. If Sophia and Lucifer are two aspects of the same myth, then the Christian portrayal of Lucifer as a villain would be an intentional inversion of an older esoteric truth. In this reading, the Demiurge and his archons deliberately rebranded Sophia's enlightenment as evil to keep souls trapped in their false creation. Instead of being a fallen adversary, Lucifer, like Sophia, becomes a force of divine wisdom, seeking to free humanity from spiritual enslavement. Lash's theory, while controversial, resonates with modern interpretations of Gnosticism that see spiritual awakening as an act of defiance against oppressive cosmic forces. Whether or not Sophia and Lucifer are truly the same, both figures represent a challenge to false authority, a call to seek hidden knowledge, and a rebellion against forces that keep humanity in darkness. If this interpretation is correct, then Lucifer's exile from heaven was never a punishment. It was a mission, a descent into darkness to bring light where it is most needed. Next on the iceberg, we have a multiverse theory. Some esoteric interpretations draw a connection between Gnostic cosmology and modern multiverse theories, suggesting that the pleroma, eons, and divine realms are not just abstract spiritual concepts, but parallel universes beyond human perception. In traditional Gnostic thought, the material world is a lower, corrupted reflection of a higher, truer reality. The pleroma, the divine fullness that exists beyond the Demiurge's world, is often described as a vast, multi-layered existence composed of different emanations, each representing an aspect of divine consciousness. This hierarchical structure of reality, with different realms stacked upon one another, bears striking similarities to modern theories about the multiverse and higher dimensional existence. In contemporary physics, the multiverse hypothesis suggests that multiple realities exist simultaneously, each governed by its own physical laws. Some physicists propose that our universe is just one of many parallel worlds, some slightly different, others completely alien in their nature. This mirrors the Gnostic idea that the material world is only one level of existence, an illusory lower realm overshadowed by countless higher realities. One of the most intriguing parallels comes from quantum mechanics and the concept of quantum superposition. In quantum theory, particles can exist in multiple states at once until observed, implying that reality is not fixed but collapses into a single state through perception. This echoes Gnostic cosmology, where the material world is not the only reality, but a fragmented illusion sustained by human consciousness. Some interpretations even suggest that the Demiurge's greatest deception was convincing souls that his world was the only one, when in truth, countless divine realms exist beyond it. The eons, divine beings that exist within the pleroma, could be understood as higher dimensional intelligences, each inhabiting its own plane of existence while remaining interconnected as part of a greater whole. If this is the case, then gnosis isn't just about spiritual awakening. It's the process of accessing other layers of reality, breaking free from the confines of material illusion. Some even speculate that mystical experiences, visions, or altered states of consciousness might be glimpses into these other realms, brief moments when the Demiurge's control weakens and the true divine order becomes visible. Interpreting Gnostic cosmology through the lens of multiverse theory also provides a compelling alternative to the traditional heaven-hell duality found in mainstream religion. Instead of a single afterlife, Gnosticism suggests that the fate of the soul depends on its level of awareness. Those who remain trapped in ignorance are confined to the Demiurge's false creation, endlessly cycling through material existence. But those who attain gnosis may ascend into one of the many divine realities beyond, escaping the prison of the lower world. One significant Gnostic multiverse teaching comes from the concept of the Ogdoad, which played a significant role in Valentinian Gnosticism. It originally stemmed from ancient astronomical theories, which describe 7 planetary spheres governed by archons, with an 8th sphere above them, often associated with the fixed stars or a higher divine realm. In Gnostic cosmology, this 8th realm was seen as a super-celestial region beyond the archon's control, sometimes linked to Sophia, Barbello, or other divine figures. Gnostic traditions commonly depicted 7 heavens, each ruled by an archon, and a higher Ogdoad beyond them. Figures like Irenaeus and Origen recorded variations of these archons' names. The Ophites even described a lower counterpart to the Ogdoad, consisting of 7 demonic entities that opposed the divine order. Some Gnostic systems incorporated Greek philosophical influences, expanding beyond the traditional 7 or 8 material heavens to describe higher spiritual realities. Valentinus refined the Ogdoad concept, teaching that beyond the lower 7 heavens was the Ogdoad, sometimes referred to as the middle region or Jerusalem above. Beyond this was the Pleroma, the divine fullness inhabited by perfect eons. Valentinian theology described a first Ogdoad consisting of 8 primordial eons, including Bethos, Sige, Nous, Aletheia, Logos, Zoe, Anthropos, and Ecclesia. Different schools of Valentinianism further developed this model, dividing the Ogdoad into distinct male-female pairs, 4 plus 4, or associating it with Pythagorean numerology, emphasizing the tetrad, or a group of 4, as the basis of existence. Ultimately, the Ogdoad in Gnostic thought represented a higher transcendent realm, marking the boundary between the lower material world, the Kenoma, and the divine realm, the Pleroma. While rooted in astronomical and mythological traditions, its significance evolved in different Gnostic sects, reflecting their attempts to describe the structure of the cosmos and the path to spiritual liberation. And lastly for this tier, we have using psychedelics to achieve gnosis. Some researchers believe that ancient Gnostics may have used psychedelic substances to induce mystical states, allowing them to experience direct revelations of the divine. The use of psychedelics in Gnostic rituals is a topic of growing interest, particularly in relation to their connections with ancient mystery cults, such as the Eleusinian mysteries. In these classical traditions, initiates consumed a sacred drink, kykeon, to experience divine revelation. Kykeon likely contains psychoactive substances, specifically ergot alkaloids, which are a precursor to LSD. Given the influence of Neoplatonism and mystery cults on early Christianity, it's plausible that similar practices were adopted by some Gnostic sects. The emphasis on direct, ecstatic communion with the divine in Gnosticism mirrors the transformative experiences reported in mystery traditions. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence comes from the accusations made by Irenaeus against Marcus the Valentinian. Marcus was a Gnostic teacher associated with the Valentinian school, which placed a strong emphasis on mystical knowledge and divine communion. Irenaeus claimed that Marcus seduced women using philters and love potions, leading them into states of intense devotion and passion. He also accused Marcus of mixing the Eucharist with a purple substance that induced the receivers to prophecy through mystical invocations. Irenaeus wrote that the women initially protest that they do not know how to prophesy, but under Marcus's influence, they entered an altered state, speaking words that they claim are divinely inspired. He also states that their hearts beat violently, they become excited in the soul, and they utter nonsense. This description aligns with known effects of entheogenic substances, which were often used in ancient rituals to induce altered states of consciousness. Orthodox Christianity's condemnation of such practices may have contributed to their suppression and eventual erasure from mainstream religious traditions. The similarities between Gnostic Christianity and pagan mystery cults further support the hypothesis that entheogens played a role in Gnostic rituals. Many Mediterranean religions, including the cults of Mithras, Serapis, and Dionysus, emphasize secret initiation ceremonies that often involve direct encounters with the divine. The worship of Serapis, in particular, was known to overlap with early Christianity, as Emperor Hadrian noted that Christians and Serapis devotees often worshipped in the same temples. Other Neoplatonist philosophers such as Iamblichus wrote extensively about trance states and visionary experiences achieved through fasting, music, and likely the use of sacred plants. Given the fluid exchange of religious and philosophical ideas between Gnosticism and these traditions, it is reasonable to conclude that Gnostic initiates may have used entheogens to facilitate their ascent to higher realms of spiritual knowledge. Early Christian groups influenced by Gnosticism such as the Ophites and the Fabianites were accused by church fathers of engaging in strange mystical rites, including the consumption of sacred substances. Some researchers speculate that these accusations may have been distorted accounts of legitimate psychedelic rituals, where ingesting certain plants or brews allowed practitioners to experience direct encounters with divine beings. The Mandeans, as mentioned in an earlier tier being one of the last surviving Gnostic sects, still use ritual immersion in water and specific herbal mixtures as part of their spiritual practices, which could be remnants of earlier Gnostic traditions. If Gnostic mystics did use psychoactive substances to break through the Demiurge's deception, it would suggest that their teachings weren't just abstract philosophy, but were based on direct, altered states of perception, experiences that temporarily freed them from the control system of the material world. Whether through spontaneous visions, deep meditation, or chemical sacraments, the goal remained the same: to awaken the divine spark within and reunite with the true source of existence. Alright, that closes off the 6th tier of the Ultimate Gnosticism Iceberg. Thanks again for watching. Let me know what you thought of this tier and what topic interested you the most. We've got one more tier coming, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss this one, so make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. I should be finished with it within a week, so see you soon. Until next time.